During the Bush administration, Congress passed the No Child Left Behind Act in 2001 as part of the government program to aid disadvantaged students by supporting standard-based education reform. Although NCLB had good intentions, hoping to improve the education system put in place, in reality it may have done more harm than good in some ways. The No Child Left Behind Act made it necessary for schools to educate their students in order to become proficient in reading and math. No Child Left Behind supports setting high standards and establishing measurable goals that can improve individual outcomes in education. It was expected that 100% of the students be proficient in these subjects by 2014. Testing of this proficiency would be from the results of standardized testing. Another purpose of NCLB was to put greater focus on the educational gap between students who come from different economic and ethnic backgrounds. These achievement gaps have shown that students coming from less privileged families often score lower than students who are better off. There is also a gap between the scores of African American and Hispanic students when compared to their non-Hispanic white peers. The great deal of accountability put on educators by NCLB was an impossible task. Even if teachers were making great progress with students, they would still be considered failing because they weren't proficient. Schools were faced with punishments like decreased funding and possibility of being shut down. Teachers were also being evaluated on the results of these scores. NCLB required schools to have teachers who were well prepared and reliable. They must meet the new highly qualified standard. This includes teachers that already had gained tenure. This policy has just increased the stakes of standardized testing, causing schools and teachers to narrow the curriculum in order to put more focus on reading and math. This takes away from other subjects in school the schools offer, like arts, physical education, and foreign language. Teachers have adopted a policy of teaching to the test. Students being taught under this policy often lack a full understanding of the subject and all its applications. Teachers now often focus only on information that will be assessed on standardized tests rather than going in depth into other various areas of the subject. For example, 1 year of standardized testing results showed how 2/3 of 8th graders missed world math problems that called for the calculation of the distance between 2 points using the Pythagorean theorem. Teachers had incorrectly assumed the test would have simplistic aspects of the subject rather than well-ordered problems that required more knowledge of the theorem to be used in applications of many different types of problems. Choosing not to teach these aspects of the theorems shows the narrowing of the curriculum. NCLB has also offered students to transfer out of schools that are considered failing. This has led to an increase in transfers in many districts, resulting in overcrowding in many cases. It is also not too surprising that the punishment surrounding standardized testing has caused many school districts to turn to cheating. In the past year since standardized testing has begun, cheating scandals have been uncovered in many areas and school districts. Many debaters of the No Child Left Behind Act call for the evaluation of educators and schools should not be solely based on standardized testing scores. Overall, the implication of the No Child Left Behind Act required too much emphasis on standardized testing, which resulted in an array of detrimental teaching methods that would decrease the actual learning of students. The accountability of educators and schools pressured them to meet impossible proficiency standards, which caused them to cut down the curriculum and sometimes even inflate student test scores in order to not face penalty. Many want reform that would create more attainable and realistic goals, along with better ways of evaluating teachers and students. People don't want to eliminate tests overall, they just want a better way of testing students. The Obama administration has already made some progress in reform, addressing some of the pros and cons and arguments against the No Child Left Behind Act and standardized testing as a whole. Still, Obama does not plan on eliminating the standardized testing, which still does not solve the problem of teaching to the test, but rather he is providing additional resources to meet new goals and multiple forms of assessment. He has also provided waivers for several states, who in return will now adopt more focus on preparing students for college and careers. He also has put into effect his Race to the Top program, which has provided an increase in funding initiative in exchange for stronger test scores. This invited states to compete with each other for extra funding by meeting certain requirements and gaining points. Since its signing into law in 2002, the Bush administration had hoped for 100% proficiency by 2014. Now, coming into this important year, have we reached our goal? The short answer is no, we have not. Maybe that's because it was an impossible test to begin with. The standardized testing that was put in place by NCLB needs to be reformed, not in a way that will completely eliminate standardized tests, but rather take away some of the accountability of schools and teachers to reach this goal. Take away some of the pressure and high stakes surrounding the results of standardized testing. Overall, the administration needs to reform the educational system in order for schools to adopt better methods of evaluating students over a longer period of time. Not only should students not be solely evaluated based on exam scores, but teachers as well. Students need to be provided with the most adequate teachers, but tying their abilities to the results of their students' exam scores creates the possibility of losing actually really good teachers. Schools need a way of implementing more creative learning into their curriculum, as well as teaching a full range of applications of subjects and not just teaching what is going to be assessed on a state exam.